Hey friends, my name is Reverend Doris K. Dalton. I'm the director of Connectional Ministries in the New York Conference, and I'm really glad to have Karen Prudente with me today. Karen is one of my friends, and she's also well known in this conference. You've been a lay person here in the New York Annual Conference for how many years?
Since 72.
1972.
A member of the Christ Church in Manhattan.
Wow. Wow. And I believe there's other things that you've done in this conference too, or you've served in other leadership roles, right?
Yes, I've also been an annual conference delegate for the last two general conferences, 2019 and 2024. Also been the president of Mind Methodist in New Directions. And I'm just a member of that group right now.
Yeah, yeah. I think I remember you telling me that you were also in leadership role with United Methodist Women in the conference.
Yes, for 3 years as vice president.
Okay, there you go. Wonderful, right. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today is also because of some of the leadership roles that you've had, not only in our annual conference, but really beyond in our general church, particularly in the area of regionalization.
Yes, so although I served on the annual conference as for United Methodist Women, I also worked for Global Ministries, United Methodist Women under the Women's Division, in charge of their international ministries with women, children, and youth, and as assistant treasurer, and then a member of the Connectional table. This is now my second quadrennium with them.
Wow, that's so great. That's so great. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is you've been really helpful to me in helping me understand some of the things that happened at General Conference. I mean, I was there, you were there, but still there was a lot that happened, and that happened rather quickly too, that seemed to kind of go past my head. So it was really great to have this conversation with you between us. And so now I wanted to bring this conversation to everybody else so that you all could hear the wonderful wisdom that Karen was able to share with me. So one of the big words that came out of the General Conference, this postponed 2020 General Conference that is the word regionalization. Can you tell us what is regionalization?
So regionalization is actually a very old word. It even was shared in 2008 with the denomination at that time, but it didn't pass. It just means that we were created in regions, which are called now central conferences. But the U.S. has never been one, and so this is why this General Conference is important, because we're trying now to create the U.S. Regional Conference so that all of the work is not just U.S.-centric now. We're changing the whole concept of regionalization where everybody's equitable at the table.
Now, some people might not know what a central conference is. Could you say a little bit more about that?
So the world has been divided into 4 other areas besides the United States. We have Africa, we have the Philippines, and we have Europe. So actually 4, but even within Africa, we have several central conferences.
This is the United Methodist Church, right?
Of course.
We're talking about.
We only talk about our family, United Methodist Church.
Right, okay.
So there are actually 7 right now, and the new one was just created at the General Conference, another central conference. But once we ratify, which is another word that we all need to know, hopefully by the end of December next year, 2025, then we will be named regions instead of central conferences. And prayerfully, the U.S. will be its own region too.
Right, right. This is a really important conversation. I think that we don't always understand quite why we're doing this.
So the other important thing is that the reason why it's been complicated is because all of the U.S. matters, all of our legislation, all of our interesting items that we must talk about goes to General Conference rather than just among us Americans. So when we go to General Conference, I would say the first 3 days are all about the pension funds that only affect American clergy and other things.
So you're saying that a delegate from perhaps one of the central conferences in Africa would have to sit there for 3 days and vote on matters that don't have anything to do with them, but have everything to do to benefit U.S. clergy. Is that right?
That is correct. So if we ratify, we also save the church money because then General Conference would be rather than 2 weeks, maybe just 1 week.
I know, right?
Yeah, and then we really talk about holy conferencing because then we're talking about mission matters of the church, our ministries, not just about legislation.
So I think we're already beginning to talk about this, right? But let's just really hit it home. How does regionalization make the United Methodist Church a better church?
Well, as I shared, it's about equity. It's about values of our various siblings in their contexts. Because what happens in the U.S. doesn't necessarily matter also in Europe or Africa or the Philippines. So there's some things that only happen in their own region. Right. And that we're hoping that when we meet only at the general conference level, then we're just talking about things that really matter for the entire church.
Right. That's really, thank you for sharing that. So we're talking about what it means to be a better neighbor to each other and giving each other space. Is that about right?
Well, love your neighbor, isn't it?
Right. Good. So what does so we're talking about what happens at General Conference and what delegates from the churches on the African continent or in the Philippines have to deal with. But what does this mean about us and our local churches here in the New York Conference? How would that impact us?
So let's say there's legislation that needs to be approved just by Americans, just that matters to us. We don't have to bring it to the larger body. We among ourselves, we're already doing that within our jurisdictions, but jurisdictions don't have legislative authority, right? And annual conferences matter, but even then, it still has to go up higher at the way we are currently arranged right now as a church. So in a way, the word is also restructure. So that's why the U.S. Regional Conference is important. There is a legislative body for the U.S. that was just recently approved because of our regionalization petitions. But the goal is ratification, so then the Americans can really have a place where we make our decisions only by ourselves.
So that's another word that we may not all understand. What does ratification mean?
So ratification in the Methodist Church means really that we approve. We have accepted this petition, the change of an amendment, actually, of our Constitution within the United Methodist Church.
We have a Constitution?
Yes.
Where is that Constitution?
In the Book of Discipline.
Oh, in that Book of Discipline, right? Okay. Yeah, exactly. So we made a change in the Book of Discipline at the General Conference, right? The postponed 2020 General Conference.
Yes, we have, but it takes an aggregate 2/3 vote for any amendments to our Constitution to be approved, just like the United States. Pretty similar.
Okay. So what does that mean for perhaps the lay delegate to annual conference? If you're a lay delegate to annual conference, this is for you. So what does this mean?
Right. So that's why this November is very important because we have church conferences, right?
Right now.
So our lay delegates are being selected this month, and they will be voting on ratifying, hopefully, saying yes to the changes that we are making to our Constitution.
Well, when will we be voting on that? There's a lot of voting going on right now, but when would we be voting on that?
Well, most likely for us in the New York Annual Conference, it will be June, but I don't know the specific date. We normally hold our annual conference in June.
The voting would happen at our annual conference in June 2025, right?
Yes, and what is interesting here is that we're really asking also all of our retired clergy to be present unless a hybrid way of voting is acceptable.
Okay, so to be determined about the hybrid voting, but as many people as possible who could be present. So who could vote on the constitutional amendment?
Lay delegates and clergy.
And all clergy, retired and active. Okay, that's important to know. All right. Any last words about regionalization and what it could do for us?
I think it's the next phase of Methodism.
Why is it the next phase of Methodism?
Because it's bringing equity, it's bringing all of us to be able, as neighbors, to really love and accept each other and our differences.
Okay. Yes. And I think that's where we're trying to go, right? That's where we're trying to head. Do you have a resource for us to also refer to?
Yes, actually. So the whole thing also about regionalization is decolonizing the church. So we've been studying this book called Methodism and American Empire by David Scott and Philippe Maya. And the whole reason, too, is to decolonize how we have been doing Christianity around the whole world. So that's how I say it's a new phase of Methodism.
It's a new Methodism. We're trying to work into what God has for us.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, Karen. I've really enjoyed spending this time with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you, friends. It's great to be with you. Be well.